Why did representatives of the Khoisan communities make the lawns of the union buildings their home for 2 weeks? Why has the Kwadi Khoi language of the Khoisan community not been listed as an official language? And why are the Khoisan communities refusing to be classified as coloureds? And is the new ANC leadership committed to addressing the Khoisan's grievances? What time is it? It's question time. Khotong, and welcome to the show. My name is Paul Sedu. 4 members of the Khoisan ethnic group protested outside Pretoria's union buildings for nearly 3 weeks, adamant they would not eat nor vacate the premises until President Zuma met with them. Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa finally met and assured them that their memorandum would be given the necessary consideration. Among other things, their demand was for the South African government to officially recognize the Khoisan nation as the first citizens of the country. They also demanded that their language, which is emblazoned on South Africa's coat of arms, be included as an official language. Are the demands of the Khoisan legitimate? We are live, and therefore you can call us and air your views. The numbers to dial is 089-110-4210. Our international number +2789-110-4210, and our Twitter handle at QuestionTime24. My guest, John Van Rooyen, is a Khoisan community representative, and we are expecting to be joined from our Seapoint studio by the Deputy Minister of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, Obed Bapela. So he will hopefully be joining us in no time. But let me welcome you, John. Let's just briefly talk about this protest that happened at the union buildings.
Thank you, Paul, and good afternoon to your viewers. There's a group of our guys that walked from Port Elizabeth. It's almost 18 days ago. And all the way from Port Elizabeth, about 1,200 kilometers, to come and hand over a memorandum to either the President of South Africa, Jacob Zuma, or his Deputy President, Cyril Ramaphosa. And they were adamant that they're not going to hand the memorandum over to anyone else except for the 2 of them. And when they got here, there was discrimination taking place from day one, because they were told at the union buildings that the attire that they were in, because they wore traditional Khoisan attire, and they were refused entry into the union buildings. And then they decided that they'll go to the lawns, and then they'll squat on the lawns until one of Zuma or Cyril Ramaphosa come and receive the memorandum.
Okay, and the demands being?
The demands were basically 4 demands, Paul. The first one being that the Khoi and the San should be recognized as the first indigenous people of South Africa. The second demand was the language of the Khoi and San people to be recognized. The third one was the cutoff date that was used in terms of the 1913 Land Native Act. Yeah. So that you can't use that because the Khoi and the San people lost land long before 1913, almost like 1488. When Vasco da Gama came here, so you can't use 1913. And the fourth one was scrapping of the colored identity sort of and things.
Okay, now that's a very interesting one, because we were checking even on the South African government systems. The forms that you have to fill in as for whatever services that you may require from government would say black, white, colored, Indian.
Yeah.
Where do you tick?
Yeah, there's something that they call other now. In terms of some forms, there's other. So I would then write Khoisan. But if it's not there, I scratch out colored and I write Khoisan. So that's what I do. So the idea is that we need to remove colored and then replace it with Khoisan. Or alternatively, leave colored, but then instead of having other, you can have Khoisan, and then you could probably have other.
And by the way, this colored concept only exists in South Africa.
Yes, most definitely. The African Americans, as they call themselves now, are shocked when they get here and they see a whole lot of people walking around and calling themselves colored. Because what is a colored? The other day on radio, on SAFM, I said, a colored, if you take a Smartie box and you look at the Smartie box, that's colored. Beautiful. It's pink, it's orange, it's purple, it's red, all the colors are there. Am I that? When you look at me, am I like that? I'm not like that. So that is a colored. So how can you be proud of that, of a Smartie box? So you can rather call us Smartie boxes. That's what they must call us, if you want to call me a colored.
Okay, but not all so-called coloreds or colored people are Khoisan.
Yes, most definitely.
All right.
Yes.
Let's go to Itumeleng. Itumeleng, you're in Pretoria. Welcome.
Thank you, Mpo. Mpo, I think our government should take these demands very serious.
Yes.
You know, all the indigenous people, you look at the Aborigines in Australia, you look at the Indians in North Canada, in America, they are not taken serious. I don't know why. I really don't know why. They always celebrate their independence wrong. The gentleman there is right. He's not a colored. Why should they classify them as colored? They need to recognize them as the first people of this nation. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. Actually, we are showing that we are prepared to fix what was wrong, what happened wrong in the past. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you are a political party that have an agenda of vote, you'll always lie to people that you are the what, you are the what, so that people will vote for you. But that is injustice to the colored community. It's very sad. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much for the call, Itumeleng. Well, Itumeleng agrees with you, but there's something that I then ask myself: why are you Smiths and Van Rooyens and all that if you are so Khoisan and you would want to really reclaim your true identity? I mean, there couldn't have been a Smith of a San or a Khoi.
100% correct, Paul, because I think you're one of the first people that's asking that question in all the interviews that I've done. And thank you for asking that question. So what happened to our people is that when the Dutch settlers came here, they didn't understand our language.
Yeah.
So what they thought was happening is that when our people spoke the language, they thought our people were squandering about them. And what they were doing, they made an example of some of them. So they would take the men and undress them naked. And they'll hang them upside down and beat them in front of their children, in front of their wives, in front of everybody, the whole community, because they wanted to instill fear into them that you should never speak this language. And in so doing, they then told us, you don't have a culture, you don't have a language, you must stop speaking this language, the Nama language, the Korana language, the San language, all those languages. And in terms of that is where we lost it. Then what then happened was, we then took on the slave master's surname. So that's basically what happened. If you go back and look at Malcolm X, when he changed his surname to X, Mr. X, and Khoisan.
Yes.
Yeah, Khoisan X.
Benny Alexander.
When he changed it, it's as a result of that. Because I'm walking around with a slave master's surname.
But can you speak the language?
We're learning because it's a difficult language. It's like Xhosa and the 3 clicks in Zulu and things. So it's very, but we are learning. There's a dictionary that we are having, and we want to introduce that the language into schools so that our children can't go wrong, and then so we can then speak the language to the children.
Wise men, welcome.
Good afternoon, Paul, and good afternoon to Van Rooyen there. You see, Paul?
Hi, Wise man.
Van Rooyen, a colleague of mine, actually the colored guy. You see what you're raising now, I'm proud. I'm very, very proud of you, my man. I told Ashwell that, look, if you go to America, you'll never find a colored, or you can go in any country, but you'll never find people called colored. We are all black.
Whoa, you made your point though, Wise man, one of our regular callers there. Indeed. Why is it so important for you to want to discard Van Rooyen and get to the X, which we do not know so far?
Because as I said, it's a slave master surname. So we're still walking around with a slave master surname. I mean, you know what happened? If you could look at among so-called colored people, then you'll find that I think what they did was they took all the colors that are there. So you find greens, you find whites, you find blacks, you find browns. And then when they were finished with that, there were nothing, no colors left. Then they went to the animals. We find elephant, you find leo, you find whatever things. And so what is that? How can you be so proud of that kind of surname? That's not our surnames. So we are going back to our surnames. I mean, I can tell you now, live on air now, I'm going to change my name to John Stalin Kung Koya Kena. That will be my name. And in terms of DNA, it shows I'm from the Kung, and from my father's side, I'm from the Koya tribe. And then when the Koya and the Kung mixed, and they became the Kena.
So why are you still keeping the John now?
Yeah, because that's the name that my mother and my father gave me, and my grandparents gave me. That's why I'm keeping that name, because that name is a name that they gave to me. Okay. But my surname, yes, they never decided to have that surname.
Okay. Let's go to Groblersdal. Tommy?
Good day.
Welcome.
Hi, Tommy. You're speaking to Tommy. You know, this question issue, it has been there. It does not start now. The thing is that the system that people are using to be heard to the government is not the Khoisan's culture. There is no strike. They don't do those things. They talk, they negotiate. So actually the government was waiting for them to use the same system of strikes, banning, and so that they can be heard. And then Khoisan represented the true Africans. Because the politics is not our African culture. We don't know politics. That is why we're failing. So the Khoisan will never be heard as long as the system that we use to be heard is for strikes and so on and so on. They have everything now. They have dictionaries. They have been trying to be heard. So they will never listen to them. I'm telling you, 10 years after, we are still going to have the same issue of the Khoisan. They will never hear them because they need them to ban schools so that they can now say, come and negotiate.
They don't even have their schools.
Yes, that's the system we are using. When government comes to people is when they ban something. Okay. So the Khoisan, they don't do that. They are true African. They fear God. They do things through negotiations, only negotiations. So Khoisan will never be heard because they have been trying. What is it that they have never tried? There is presentations in the government. There is everything. They have spoke enough.
Okay. Tommy, yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tommy.
Calling us from Groblersdal. We're now joined, of course, by the Deputy Minister, Albert Bapela, joining us from our Seapoint studios. DM, thank you very much for making time. I'm with Mr. Van Rooyen here, well, the other Van Rooyen, not your colleague, who is speaking on behalf of the Khoisans, and they're saying government is not treating us well. What is your point?
Well, I wouldn't agree with them that we are not treating them well. Otherwise, if we were not, or we're going to be not treating them well, is because why did we pass the legislation in Parliament now? In August this year, we had passed in the passage of Khoisan and Traditional Leadership Bill. It has not gone through the National Assembly. It is now in the NCOP as the law process in South Africa dictates. And the NCOP has already made a timetable of going to all the provinces and to also do what the NCOP do, consultations. By March, they will be done with everything, and it will go to the president to assent into law. In South Africa, lawmaking takes 2 years. We have already passed that particular stage. We are left with 3 months of next year, and the president will be signing it into law. That gives them recognition, and therefore it's not true that we have not been listening to the Khoisan, because their law will not have gone through the passage of cabinet, the National Assembly, a National Assembly going to provinces, now the NCOP, which is still going to go to provinces, and then it becoming a law by April, May of the coming year. And with that recognition, the language will then come into the effect in terms of which is the language. We'll have to do development and then ensure that we recognize the language itself and we develop it like all other languages. And secondly, we'll then be establishing a commission that determines who are the traditional leaders within the Khoisan people, and because there are so many claimants, already 500 of them that are claiming. So we then need to determine as to who is telling the truth, who is not telling the truth, and then go through a commission proper, listen to them with all the experts that are going to be. And thereafter, the land issue will also be rising so that they also have their own communities settled proper, like all other national and indigenous groups in South Africa.
Musa, you are in Atteridgeville. Welcome.
How are you, Paul?
I'm well. Thanks for the call.
Thank you very much, man. I'm very much concerned about this issue.
Yes.
Yeah, what I'm trying to say here is the issue of the guy I was listening to him now as he speaks. But the thing is, this thing is taking so long. Why it takes so long like this? Because really, these people need to be recognized in terms of our constitution. We do support that. And number two, the issue that when you start with your show there, they indicated that they were sort of chased away from the union people. What does that imply to us as people of South Africa? It's sort of a discrimination of some sort, according to me.
Musa, thanks very much for the call. Now, what the DM said and what you are saying are two different things. If we are to believe the DM, they are taking care of your needs.
They're not taking care of our needs, Paul. And you heard what Musa was saying. And it's 100% correct. Why were our people turned away from the union buildings in their attire? Now, let me tell you, I've been at the union buildings myself, where I saw the Zulu praise dancer of Jacob Zuma coming into the union buildings with his attire and not being chased away.
Yeah.
Now, what is that? That's discriminatory practices. So DM, I'm not sure if he knows about that. He knows that they were turned away. The second thing is, why did it take the president or deputy president 15, 16 days to come and receive a memorandum? The deputy president didn't even spend 5 minutes and he was gone. So why did it take them 15, 16 days? The ANC conference was taking place here down the road in Esdrecht. It's about 30 minutes drive, 15 minutes drive with the blue lights on to the union buildings. Why didn't they come and accept it? So there's still discriminatory practice and we are not taken serious. Only when our guys went on a hunger strike and some of them were hospitalized, then only the deputy president came to receive the memorandum.
But he's saying, the DM is saying that the process takes at least 2 years.
Yeah, I hear him about the bill. I hear what he's talking about the bill.
Yes.
It's fine, yes, there is a bill. And we participated in the bill. But what we are saying is the bill, it will be a piece of legislation. There's a difference between constitutional recognition and being recognized in terms of legislation. The bill will recognize us in terms of legislation. That's not 100% correct. We are asking for constitutional recognition.
Okay, let's get it from
That's
the
what we want.
DM, constitutional recognition and legislative recognition, I don't know the difference there. What does the bill say?
Well, the bill says that when in 1994, all other indigenous national groups were identified. You remember, apartheid had classified everybody as colored. And then the information was not available. It was sketchy, not anywhere. It was obliterated completely by the colonizers and so forth. However, with evidence emerging and with people such as John van Rooyen and many, many others who had come forward to say, we do exist, we are there, we are not colors. We then started listening, and indeed, when that matter was then finally raised, we then said, let's then recognize them through the legislation, and the constitution will follow soon as the legislation it's been adopted, and there's no one who's opposed to it, and all parties across the nation, they know that there are quiescent people, and that is why we even recognize the National Quiescent Council. That is a representative body for all of them. They are participating in all the systems, in all processes, and therefore this matter is almost reaching finality, and then all quiescents will enjoy similar status as all other indigenous national groups in South Africa.
Are they impatient, DM?
Well, look, I mean, the matter has been raised for almost 20 years, and one will understand that for almost 20 years, they have not been listened to. And I think the impatience arises from why it took so long for them to be recognized. But once I came in as a deputy minister in 2014, I then said to the department, this thing is long overdue. Just meeting them once, listening to them, and we're able to push the legislation through cabinet, National Assembly now, and now in the NCOP. But yes, one will understand why it took so long and so long. However, on the issue of what happened at Union Building, The president normally does not receive memorandums. So many marches that are taking place, so many protests that have gone there. The fees must fall when the 100,000 of children went there. The president did not come out. Then they were also saying, we want the president to come and collect. But we sent the ministers. Minister Jeff Radebe went to meet the Khoisan leaders who were at Union Building. They refused him. The Minister Van Rooyen also tried, they refused. The DG for the Department of Traditional Affairs tried, they refused. The DG Lubisi from the president came, they refused. They only wanted the president or the deputy president. But normally, every protest, if the president has to receive a memorandum, that will really be unfair on them. That is why you have ministers as president, and those ministers are assigned from time to time. Okay. But with them, obviously, they just said, no one else except the president or the deputy president.
Let's quickly take Deboho in Vanderbilt Park. Welcome.
Hello.
Yes, Ndati.
Hello, Tekapoko.
Oh, sorry, Ntatwaka.
They never took the Khoisan serious. If they took the Khoisan serious, they should have legalized the language when they legalized all the 12 languages. It should have legalized in 1994 when all the languages were legalized. Because Mandela said he cannot tolerate minority being exploited.
Yes.
So they never took them serious. They should have legalized it in 1994 when they legalized all the languages of South Africa.
Dr. Kapoko, thank you very much from Vanderbilt Park there. Your closing remarks.
Yeah, Tsepo, I think the bill is there. We participated in the bill, but it doesn't give us constitutional recognition. I'm going to ask him a question, 2 direct questions, and he must answer to it, respond to it, and he must tell us what he's going to do about it, or what government is going to do about it. We must stop pussyfooting. The first question is, we've raised this before. We said, why can't we, in the preamble of the Constitution of South Africa, indicate there that the Khoi San people are the first indigenous people of South Africa, which is the truth. We're not lying. We're not telling lies.
Okay.
The second issue would be Chapter 12 of the Constitution, which says there shall be a national house of traditional leaders established. Why can't they say there shall be a house of national, traditional, and Khoisan leaders established in the Constitution,
but
not just in legislation?
Why do you want specifically traditional leaders and Khoisan?
Because there's the bill. The bill says traditional and Khoisan leaders. So how do you then have a bill that speaks to traditional Khoisan leaders? But in the Constitution, in Chapter 12, it only speaks about traditional. It doesn't say traditional and Khoisan leaders.
Whoa. DM, unfortunately, we don't have time, and I really think this disparity there deserves to be answered. Would you be able to respond to that in 20 seconds?
Let me say that the Constitution will be amended as soon as the legislation is in place, and in the Constitution it only says traditional leadership and traditions will be recognized. It doesn't say Zulu, Xhosa, Pedi, Venda, or anything of that sort. No one is mentioned there. Okay. And I don't think that it's fair for the Khoisan then now to be mentioned in the Constitution, because all other national groups are not mentioned in that particular Chapter 12 of the Constitution. It only recognizes traditions.
All right, thank you very much, DM. Stefano, thank you very much, and I look forward to you really getting back that identity which you so much deserve.
Thank you very much.
That was question time for today. A big thank you to my guests and to you for watching the show. From me and the entire crew, you have yourself a wonderful time. Iva Khosi.